So let's talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins win. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. The Penguins win their second straight, beating the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 here at PPG Paints Arena. Now, there's a little bit of, back and forth. The Penguins beat two bad teams, Anaheim and Montreal. That's if you want the glass to be half empty. If you want the glass to be half full, here's where I'm going to take you on this. 2 wins in a row. Okay. The Penguins have done that before. But here's where you should judge the Penguins on the last 120 or even 140 minutes of hockey. Look at the process. Look at who is doing what, how they are playing. And actually, a better picture begins to emerge. You don't get to make your own schedule in the National Hockey League. You can't call up the Edmonton Oilers and say, hey, let's go at it again Saturday night. We want to see how good we are. It's not how it works. The NHL sends whatever team they decide, whatever team the computer spits out into your building. And if the Penguins don't beat Montreal, people complain. If the Penguins beat Montreal, people say, oh, it's only Montreal. And no, because the Penguins' process was significantly better, if not the best game they've played this season. Now, Anaheim, the Penguins dominated the puck. Anaheim was tired. Montreal is a plucky team. They're in a funk right now. What the Penguins did to them, especially, I'll say the first 30 minutes of the game, is very noteworthy. And yeah, my shirt bunches up, so I have to scrunch over here, the spot we're in. Anyway, what the Penguins did to the Canadiens in the first 30 minutes, they took away the center of the ice. In the defensive zone especially, when the Penguins came back, they stayed between the dots. Very important. One player of note, Ryan Graves, we'll talk about him towards the end of the video here. There were a couple of times I chuckled to myself as Graves went low in the zone, near the net. That's where he's supposed to be. You could see him pull himself back to stay home, stay at that post, guard the crease, guard the front of the net. He had some pretty good battles, too, with the Canadiens forwards. You don't necessarily notice all of that on television because, the puck is moving around the outside and Montreal might have possession in the offensive zone and you might tense up a little bit, but the Penguins were doing a physical job of keeping Montreal to the outside. They were doing a much better job of taking the ice away, taking the good ice, as Mike Sullivan calls it. Let me grab my notes once again. Obviously, what you did see on television, what is patently obvious to anybody watching the last couple or a few Penguins games, this line of Malkin, Crosby, Rakell. Actually, I guess as you're watching the video, it's Malkin, Crosby, Rakell, is really good. Rickard Rakell is maybe a bit of an unsung hero in this situation. How slippery he is playing. He's just getting the puck and he's kind of just wiggling this way, toe dragging that way to create that much space for a passing lane and making that pass. And Crosby going to the net and being Sidney Crosby, winning those puck battles and the back checking. And let me tell you something. My notes from Saturday are filled with little stars for Evgeny Malkin. No, he didn't get a point again. But he is retrieving the puck like a bat out of hell. I kid you not, he is back-checking hard. He is getting into the defensive zone using that 6'3" or 4" wingspan. Being big, taking away passing lanes. Jumping on loose pucks and making simple plays. It's like, is this Evgeny Malkin? The line is working, I think, beyond anybody's wildest expectations. Rickard Rakell had 2 goals in the first game they were paired. Sidney Crosby 2 goals. In the next game they were all paired or trioed. And then Sidney Crosby has 2 more goals. Even though Malkin doesn't have a lot of points in that stretch, do not underestimate how well he is playing. once again, as I wrote on Friday on Pittsburgh Hockey Now, this really might come down if the Penguins want a chance to be successful this season. They're going to need one more piece, and that piece is to slide to that second line behind Crosby and Malkin. Because as good as they are, it's really not sustainable to be such a one-line team. I asked Mike Sullivan how he thought the other three lines were playing on Saturday, and correctly, he pointed out how strong Lars Eller and Drew O'Connor have been. O'Connor and Puustinen do have a little chemistry. They've created a few scoring chances, but nothing has gone in. And let's be honest, in reality, that's a nice third line. Asking them to be a second line against really good teams is going to be a stretch. Cody Glass, Mike Sullivan had some praise for Cody Glass and Noel Acciari on the third line as creating some offensive zone time. But again, I can't say that they really have had some great high danger looks. They've had zone time, but I don't know that they've been a big threat to score. And so you begin to have this entire push-pull where the Penguins are winning. The top line is dominating so thoroughly that it filters to the rest of the team who gets to play in the offensive zone. But I don't know how sustainable that is long term. Now, actually three players that I want to highlight in the final two games of this 3-game homestand. You might be a little bit surprised by the two of the three. The first being Alex Nedeljkovic. These are three unheralded players. Nedeljkovic has made some huge saves at huge, critical, key moments for the Penguins. The Penguins got a little wobbly in the third period against Montreal. Montreal got bag skated on Friday. A no-puck practice. Teams get that message usually, and they didn't want to incur more wrath from Martin St. Louis. They came after it in the third period. Nedeljkovic made those saves. Huge for the Penguins to get timely and clutch goaltending that they can rely on. There's no big rebounds. There's no pizzas laying in the slot. There's no soft goals. They're getting good goaltending. 2, prepare yourselves now. Ryan Graves. Graves was especially good against the Canadiens Saturday. Stayed home. Didn't go below the goal line. Didn't lose himself there. Didn't lose himself by drifting high into the slot, as he's known to do. He's a drifter. Graves naturally is a drifter unless you say stand here. And the last couple of games, especially Saturday, he did have the one gaffe that led to a goal on Thursday, but Saturday he physically took a step and then came back on 2 occasions. I found that a little bit amusing, but the fight at the end of the game as well. Wi-Fi, Montreal's defenseman. That's what I'll call him. Wi-Fi speared Michael Bunting in the second period, and not in the stomach. If Bunting wasn't Jewish, he probably could pass for it after that spear. You get what I'm saying. And then towards, in the final second at the horn of the third period, Wi-Fi then tried to knee Noel Acciari. Well, Graves took him down. Took down Jaden Goulet. That was the person he could grab. I guess Wi-Fi was otherwise engaged. So Graves fought Goulet at the horn. That's going to get stick taps from the boys as well. But Graves was just a big defenseman on Saturday. And the third player that gets some stick taps for the last 2 games especially, wait for it, Erik Karlsson. Now here's a quote from Alex Nedeljkovic in talking about the Penguins' improved defensive play. He said, "We're not making that big mistake. We're not making that huge, egregious pass up the middle. We're not shooting directly into someone's shin pads. Now, Nedeljkovic didn't call out Erik Karlsson specifically, but yeah, listen, that's the stuff that Karlsson has been doing that has been, making the Penguins' defensive struggle, or compounding the Penguins' defensive struggles. He's cut those egregious mistakes out, especially of the last couple of games. You haven't seen the defensive whiffs at center ice. He's not jumping up like he did in Vancouver last Saturday when Daniel Sprong had the puck and skating along the boards. Karlsson tried to jump up, and Karlsson just walked him at the red line. Sprong walked Karlsson at the red line. Those things aren't happening. Karlsson cut down his mistakes from many to none. Look at the difference. Yes, Anaheim. Yes, Montreal are bad teams. You still have to beat them. And the Penguins' process was significantly better. And those three players elevating their games, or in Nedeljkovic's case, elevating the production from that position, it just makes everything else go. It allows Sidney Crosby to win the game by scoring 2 goals. It allows that top line to stay in the offensive zone. And I think it does allow for just a smidgen of hope. At 5-7-1, it's not an ideal record. But the Penguins will begin, if they win a few games, to begin to climb the standings quickly. Again, glass half full, glass half empty. The half empty part is there are 7 teams behind or between the Penguins and a playoff spot. The glass half full, that margin was only 2 points between last place in the conference and the second wild card. Yeah, it's going to be a jumbled fight to the end on that one. Win a few games. Now the Penguins have 3 games coming up. This is really the crucible here. It might be the crucible of their season, because if they lose these 3, toss the bottle into the water and the ship can set sail. They've got the Islanders, Carolina, and the Capitals on the road here over the next week. I'll be there, so if you're in town, stop by, say hello. I am Dan Kingerski. Like, subscribe, and keep joining us for this. It's shaping up to be a bit of a wild Penguin season on the Penguins, or the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel.